sound is fine.
Yes, sir.
All right, great. Yes, thank you so much. Right, so first things first, my name is Dr. Moringa, founding member of Afri Leaders in Artificial Intelligence. My background includes participating in the UKZN AI policy, and that's where the initiative of running these workshops came from. And after we identified that there is a need for training colleagues within the higher education space around issues of AI and research. So I'm a former member of the UKZN AI task force, and also currently advising deans and academic leaders across universities in South Africa and beyond on the ethical use of AI in research, specifically focusing on thesis examination and dissertation examination for postgraduate students. To date, I've trained more than 1,000 academics and researchers on ethics of generating AI, and we continue doing the work. And these seminars continue to move. Right. So just an announcement that from 1st of May to 3rd of May, we're going to be having a masterclass talk for those who are in Durban. And we are still working on those that are in other provinces, right? We'll make an announcement. Logistics and planning is underway. We'll give you full detail as to who and how you can register, right? But the purpose and the objective of the masterclass is to complete 3 chapters in those 3 days, at least 3 chapters of your thesis or your dissertation in those 3 days. So you can come with a blank page, but we need to make sure that when you leave with 3 chapters, right? Writing and reading and using AI and everything, the tools that are available. So the workshops we're running every day, every Saturday from 10 to 11:30. So yes, so our subject matter today is agentic AI, right? I'm not sure if some of us have had an opportunity to familiarize ourselves with the aspect of agentic AI, right? Whereas I appreciate that some colleagues and some masters and PhD students or early career researchers are still grappling with the issue of generative AI, where they still question, where they are still talking about the ethics, the responsible use, etc., etc. But I felt that I think the world is the landscape, the research landscape is moving so fast that such that those who are still questioning whether AI is legit in writing research or not, they are lagging behind because already we have agentic AI, right? And so the presentation of today is to usher you into the aspect of agentic AI and prepare you so that you can harness the potential that those platforms have, right? So we'll make a distinction between the two, generative AI and agentic AI, the nuances of each, right? And focus on explaining and showing you how agentic AI is actually the future of research and how it's shaping the postgraduate research and research as a whole, right? So the current AI that we know, the generative AI, the chatbots that most of us are using, your ChatGPT and your Grok, your DeepSeek, if you're using those, right? Their nature is that they are reactive and prompt dependent, right? And I'm sure we all agree, right? If you put in a prompt, those platforms, ChatGPT is it doesn't have its own goals that are independent from those of the researcher, right? It doesn't generate a research topic or research questions independent from the researcher, right? And as a result, they are prompt dependent, right? They depend, whatever outputs that you get from there, it depends on what prompts that you have punched in, right? So whereas agentic AI is goal-oriented and proactive, right? What do I mean by agentic AI is goal-oriented and proactive, right? When we say it's goal-oriented and proactive, we simply mean that this platform here, as we know it, this platform or these tools that are agentic in nature, they have moved from being dependent on the researcher to actually run the work for themselves, independent of the researcher's agency, right? So I'll give you an example to say, when you want to write a literature review or a systematic review, right? When you're using your generative AI, your chat box, right? You are in control of the whole process, guiding whatever process that is happening there by directing the platform as to what outputs are you looking out from there, right? So you can spend hours and hours having a back and forth with the platform so that you can get the best outcome from the platform, right? Whereas in agentic AI now, we've moved beyond the aspect of you sitting down and prompting and having a chat or conversation with ChatGPT to a process where you have set goals, right, for the platform, right? And the platform is proactive. It goes and completes the task itself. So it does it begins with what we call goals, right? Then it is goal-oriented. It does what we call deep searching, right? And it delivers the output to you in its purest sense, right? It doesn't need much of the researcher's agency or the researcher's engagement with the platform, right? So from the agentic AI now, it moves from task execution to problem solving, right? It specifically focuses on solving the problem itself beyond the issue of just executing a task that it has been told to do. It actually solves the whole problem, the entire problem. It solves the entire problem independent of the researcher. Right, so that's agentic AI, and I think it's an interesting future, right, in terms of research. But one might want to ask, so where does this leave? Where does this leave the researcher? You know, where does this leave you, your human agency, and things like that, right? So, we're saying that generative AI is human-led, whereas the agentic AI is AI-assisted workflow propagation, right? So the whole workflow of what you want to do, if you want to write a literature review chapter, from determining what sources should be included, right, to completing the reference list and checking and verifying, the whole process is done by the platform without you determining what it is. Then it is presented to you as a researcher to say, this is what I've done for you. Now verify, and if you are happy, then we can move to the next chapter, right? So what the agentic AI has done is that it is a broader shift in research interaction model, right? So the relationship evolves from command and response, like we know in your generative AI that we're currently using, that you simply say punch, then you get a response. We have moved to goal-driven collaboration. So we're working on a specific goal. Then that aspect of goal-driven collaboration has fundamentally changed how researchers engage with the AI, right? It's a pity if you haven't get to that point where you have exposed yourself to agentic AI, because predictions are saying that in the next 2 to 3 years, right, all industries, right, all sectors of society are getting to move into the agentic economy, right, where we shed off, we say we don't need administrators anymore, we don't need research assistants anymore, we don't need field workers anymore, we don't need people who collect data anymore, we're using agents, right? Because what agents does is that the work that you would have otherwise done in 6 months, it will complete the task in an hour. And the work that 4 people would have done, the work that 4 people would have done, it will be done by one agent, right? By one person, independent of everybody else, right? Somebody saying the slide is not moving. Has it moved now?
No,
Right.
it's standing on topic.
No.
It's standing from topic.
It's still showing the topic, Doc.
Okay, we've let's see.
It's moving now.
On my side, it has disappeared altogether.
For me, I can see the next slide now.
Yeah, can also see the next slides now.
From passive AI to agentic AI.
All right, so that's where we are.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
That's where we are. All right. I think, right, so it should be moving now. Right, so the question is now, what makes AI truly agentic? All right, that's the question we all need to answer. The slide, I moved the slide, right? You should see the blue slide now. What makes AI truly agentic? I've moved the slide.
Yes, Prof.
Yes, thank you. Right, so what we're saying is that what makes artificial intelligence agentic and beyond generative AI that we all know is that it's because of its core capabilities, right? It has various capabilities that we need to understand before we progress, right? Number one, the first characteristics of agentic AI is the autonomy that it has, right? So what it does is that it initiates the task. If you're writing a chapter, it initiates the task, right, from your topic. It initiates the chapter of literature review, right? It edits the work itself and completes the task, the chapter autonomously without you doing anything on it, right? It will go into deep search to searching for relevant literature, come up with heading and subheadings for your chapter, synthesize literature, identifying gaps, and provide you with a complete document, a complete chapter, right? That's what agentic AI does. So it is autonomous, right? It executes tasks independent of the researcher, right? Then reasoning and planning, it does what we call deep reasoning and planning, right? So it works on multi-step intelligence, right? It begins by reasoning what is understood or what is required in this particular chapter or in this proposal, right? What do we need to include in this chapter? What do we need to include in this proposal? Right, then what then happens is that it does multitask, multi-step intelligence, step by step, getting into the deep planning of the actual chapter for you. Then it breaks down complex goals into logical steps, right? For example, you were working on a literature review. We're saying we want a literature review that is 35 pages long for a PhD, right? It breaks down the process of writing that chapter into different sections, to literature review, searching for literature review. So in the background, what is happening on the platform is that the other guys are collecting relevant literature, right? The other guys are visiting Google Scholar. The other guys are visiting this database, right? And the other guys are working on synthesizes. The other guys are working on references. The other guys are checking on if the reference is okay and everything, such that when the task is complete, you have a clean literature review chapter, right? And this happens It's independent. You don't need to do anything. What you need to do is to say, this is my agent. I create my agent, and I'm going to use this agent for gathering literature review. So what people and researchers are doing now in the Western world, in the Western countries, they say, we want to do a systematic review, right? And they begin with a question in mind, right? And they say, I'm gonna need the agent to run for, when I wake up tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, I want the systematic review on my desk, right? On my desktop tomorrow. Then you give it to say, this is the question, the critical question that is there. Then you click punch, you enter, then you go to bed. Right. And then the whole night, the platform is running, not even the whole night because it is fast, right? It's running the work for you. What you have input in there is your question, right? That's agentic AI for you. So it uses tools and environment, right, that are vast and different at the same time. Right? It executes codes, it retrieves data from various platforms and operates too. It might be embedded with OpenAI, it might be embedded with Humanizer at the same time, right? When the work is generated, it cleans it from AI percentage, it cleans it from plagiarism, everything at the same time, such that when you wake up in the morning, your task is ready on your desktop for you to submit or for you to conduct whatever you want to do with it, right? It is a context awareness and memory retention, right? So what it does is that it retains project context and length over time, knowing that this is the kind of research that we need, or this is the kind of projects that you work on, right? It will come to a point where in the morning, every day when you wake up, it tells you that there is interesting areas of research that has been published. Do you want us to run a literature review? Do you want us to conduct a systematic review? Why? Because it is familiar with the kind of work that you're doing. So what this agentic AI does now is that it automates the way you as a researcher does things with limited agency on how to do all the dirty work of gathering sources, of bringing sources together. But now the real question that boggles people's mind is that then what is left of us as researchers who will answer that question, right? So it also enhances collaborative intelligence and critical engagement. It provides you feedback and suggested solutions. I'll show you one platform that I've used extensively, right, to work on literature, right? I'll just demonstrate a quick one, right? So you can have a conversation with it. It gives you feedback to say, no, look, this literature review that you want to do, clarify for me what are the exact things that you want to come out from this. Then you say, give it pointers A, B, C, and D, then you close your eyes, then it runs the whole work for you on your behalf, right? Moving on, right? So the best analog that I can give you is that the current AI that we use in the generative AI is like a library search engine, right? So what happens in generative AI is that you go to the platform and say, I'm searching for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 concepts, or I'm searching for this theory. I want to do A, B, C, D, right? You go into a library, right? This is the generative AI. Then it offers you the results according to what you have searched, right? Then this analogy here on the screen, I'm sure the screen, the slide has moved. It's showing you two guys, the computer and the student, who's saying the student is saying, the computer is saying, here is your research results. And the student says, thanks, I guess that's it. All right, not so impressed by what has been done. But when we move to the other end, right, of agentic AI, it works as the research assistant, right? It says to you, I'm going to find all the latest research for you on your behalf, right? Then it goes deep down to search, to find information, searching, gathering information, sources, putting the work together and bringing you the final report and say to you, here is the full report. I've cross-referenced everything for you on your behalf. Then you say, wow, that was fast. It just happened in 5 minutes. I'll demonstrate for you one platform that is so good at doing that, right? Let's move on to the next one, right? So now the question is, right, I want to answer all the questions that I've been asked by a lot of senior academics and professors as I've been involved in this terrain of AI and training AI. So the first question is, where AI is transforming the research process, where exactly is it transforming the research process, and how is it transforming the research process, right? So there are key different areas of disruption in postgraduate research, right? For example, the first area that I want to tell you that it might become, if you have a research assistant and you work on literature reviews, I want to tell you sadly, but most excitedly, that your job is at stake, right? Your job is at stake because agentic AI does literature reviews so much good that a human being can do, right? I'll give you an example of elicit AI. It can run an analysis of literature of more than 250 million published papers in 10 minutes, right? And no human being can reach that because as a human being, you have limitations. You only can do 50 or 100, right? Reviewing them. And when you review them, there's limitations there. There are gaps and blind spots that you cannot pick up. But so what is happening with agentic AI is that from manual search, we're moving from manual search to intelligent discovery. So we're saying as a researcher, you don't need to do the search anymore, right? What you need now is an intelligent discovery. You discover intelligent work that is already programmed and worked already on your behalf. That's what agentic AI does, right? You don't need to spend hundreds and hundreds of hours reading abstracts, right? What is agentic AI will do for you on your behalf is to say, in line with your research questions or the research area of your interest or your discipline, this is what is out there, right? Complete reports that is cross-referenced, right? So we're saying AI enables rapid identification, clustering, and synthesis of large bodies of literature, shifting the task from searching to interpreting and evaluating knowledge, right? We are moving away, right? In as much as you might love to be that academic who wants to do the dirty work, right? We are saying in the agentic economy that we're going to be fully fledged exposed to in the 2 to 5 years. We're moving away from searching for literature to being interpreting and evaluating knowledge. So the role of a researcher in that place would be you are evaluating a complete report and you are interpreting a complete report, not searching for literature. You will not be searching for knowledge anymore. You actually, the knowledge is readily available for everybody else. What your researcher as a researcher role will be to evaluate and to interpret the knowledge that has been provided by the agentic AI. Right. So we are also moving from linear reading to conceptual mapping, right, in theory development. So researchers can now use that AI, agentic AI, to identify theoretical relationships, debates, and gaps, and accelerate the development of conceptual and theoretical frameworks. I know I struggled so much in my PhD back in 2019, right, when I was trying to write a theoretical chapter, right, to just come up with a conceptual map of how theories interact and different scholars. That take me months and months to come up with. And we're saying with agentic AI, you need now to move from linear reading, right, to focus on conceptual making. And what we should expect to see is a PhD thesis with a chapter in a theory, with a theory chapter that is maps, right? That is links, that is relationships and stuff like that, so that we can map around that this theory is coming from there, it is coming from there, this is how it's developed, it is cited there. You do the bibliometric analysis in your chapter so that it shows how they are interrelationship between concepts. And that's what the affordances of agentic AI has brought in for us, right? But no matter how much you think, feel about it, but that's where we are at the moment, right? If we're looking at the change in the research design and data analysis as well, right? We're moving away from fixed methods, right? We're moving away from fixed methods to adaptive design thinking, right? So whereas the AI now supports the evaluation of multiple methodology options, right? Allowing researchers now give you an opportunity to simulate, compare, and refine research design. So your research design won't be fixed within a discipline, right? It won't be fixed within a discipline, because what you have is that when your agent is doing the mapping and bibliometric analysis of pre-existing theories, it can create those interlinks between your designs that you use in your discipline and other designs, so that we can bring rigor to your study, right? That can be only be possible with the affordances of agentic AI, right? So what we are expecting to see in the near future is that we're expecting to see masters and PhD theses. Sometimes I'll go back to my PhD or master's thesis, and I look it up, I find it so boring the way I wrote it, because there are no diagrams there are no maps, right? There are no conceptual maps, interlinks and stuff like that. And I wish I can redo it again, because the kind of knowledge that we have so much with the agentic AI, it is such that you cannot have a plain PhD thesis or a plain PhD chapter that doesn't have some diagrams, that doesn't have some maps, some conceptual interlinks, right? That's where we are. So we're also looking at the shift in data analysis approach, right? From manual coding. And it's a pity if I have colleagues that I interact with, right, that discourage their students to do their thematic analysis using AI, right? And it's a pity, because they say you need to do it using color coding or your traditional Brown and Clark thematic analysis. And the student is spending so much months in terms of trying to master how to do. You have done 100 interviews, you've done 50, 20 interviews, the time you spend in there, right? So we're saying we need to adopt the AI augmented interpretation, right? Qualitative and quantitative analysis is supported now by AI tools that assist in pattern recognition, coding, and trend identification. You need to adapt those, right? You need to adapt those and make sure that you use them to their fullest, right? Don't worry about what your supervisor or what other people say. When you've used it, what you simply need to do is to disclose, right? So we've also shifting from academic writing. We're seeing a shift in academic writing, where we're moving from drafting to iterative code development, right? So you as a researcher, in the age of agentic AI, you don't need to develop the draft anymore, right? You don't need to develop the draft chapter anymore, right? It's none of your responsibility, right? What the role of the researcher is coming now is where it is going now is that you become a code developer of the chapter, right? When the draft has been presented to you, what your role is to evaluate and enhance critical thinking and strengthen arguments and ensure that there is flow. Right, that's where we're going. So writing now has become collaborative. It's not now, it's me who has written this work. I didn't type it, so I don't feel like it's my own work, right? Within the age of agentic economy or agentic powered research, right? Those moral guilt conscience that you have, it's gonna push you behind, because we are having to become researchers who know how to initiate the process of code development of work, where the draft and the dirty work is done on your behalf, and where you come in with critical thinking, evaluation, and human judgment, now to refine the work and ensure that it remains and it meets the academic integrity that is requested of it. Right, that's where we are. Right, moving on. So now the question is, is AI accelerating or transformation? Do we see acceleration or transformation when we're talking about agentic AI, right? So this calls us to rethink the research itself. We need to rethink research itself beyond efficiency, right? Structural changes in knowledge production. So what are we saying? We're saying that we're moving from acceleration to transformation, right? So where agentic AI is not only speeding up the research process, right? When generative AI came, we said, oh, it makes us do our work faster. We can generate some small tasks very fast and stuff like that. But where we are now with agentic AI, is that beyond the acceleration or the speed itself, we are redefining how the knowledge is generated. And I want to capitalize the aspect of how the knowledge is generated, because we have a group of thinkers or scholars who think that the work should be generated by the researcher, then refined by the AI platform, right? Whereas in the agentic age, right, that relationship has been plundered, because the agentic age, the agent itself is taking away the process of knowledge production, right? Then the producing the whole task that you want, that you'd otherwise want to type, right? So we're questioning now the process of how knowledge is generated, how that knowledge is validated, communicated. So in the agentic AI, you see that the agent will generate the knowledge for you, right? And the researcher comes in to validate and then communicate those findings or those results. So moving from the traditional way of doing things, where the human researcher was responsible and solely responsible for generating the knowledge. Therefore, the definition of knowledge generation has shifted, and we need to look at it and think about it carefully. Right. So the other aspect is the erosion of traditional research boundaries. There won't be research boundaries that we so much dearly love, right? So the distinction between stages like literature review, analysis, and writing are becoming blurred as AI enables simulation and integrated workflows. What do we mean? We're saying you get to a point where you as a researcher, you're not gonna need to say, oh, this week or this month I'm writing my chapter 1, right? Oh, next month I'm writing my literature review, I'm doing my data analysis, I'm doing my what. Or this chapter. We're getting into the agentic age where you said everything will be done at the same on one go. Right. So I was listening to this university in the US, in the United States of America, where they're saying we are pushing so that we can have a person complete their PhD in 14 days, right? After the research is done, then you need to make sure that the chapters, the reports, the results are interpreted, analyzed, and the report is ready and communicated within 2 weeks of conducting the research, so that we can disseminate the research results while they are still relevant, opposed to what we are accustomed to, where you do 5-10 years of doing a research topic, you collect your data in 2010, right? You're sitting on the data, you are analyzing the data, you graduate the PhD in 2020, right? You stay again at home and stuff like that. Then in 2025, 5 years later, that's where you need to publish the results. You want to write papers and stuff like that. So the study, the problem that you identified 15 years ago, right? You are reporting the findings 15 years later. Now, the question is, in as much as we want to measure the productivity or the authenticity of work or the rigor of a PhD thesis with time, now the question that I want to pose, and that is always posed, is say, how authentic and rigorous are your findings when you report them 15 years down the line? Is the problem still relevant, or the people are already suffering from new problems. Right. So the agent AI, now what it does is that when you have your data, collected your data, we need you to, in one day, right, do the introduction, do the literature review, do the methodology, write everything, do the analysis of the results, and disseminate and produce the final report and write the research articles on the same day at the same platform and send them for publication and send it for examination. The results are still authentic, they are still fresh. That's where we go with agentic AI, where we blurring the relationship between, to say, well, I want to do my PhD in stages, right? This year I'm writing the proposal, next year I'm writing the chapters. So we're moving away from that, and you see that in the 10 years from now, it will be taking somebody 5 days to complete their PhD thesis after your registration, and you collect your data only if the universities can speed up the process of ethics, right? So we're also seeing a decline. We're going to see a decline of low-level cognitive tasks, right? So tasks such as summarizing, paraphrasing, and basic synthesis are becoming automated. I always say you don't need to be stressing yourself about summarizing work. You don't need to stress yourself about paraphrasing work. And basic synthesis of literature. Get the platforms, automate all those tasks as a researcher so that you reduce, right, the value of, you spend most of your time in critical engagement, critical evaluation of the work that you are dealing with, right? Instead of stressing and so much spending time on your summarizing work, right? So we're seeing from a shift towards higher order scholarly skills, right? So what are we saying? We're seeing that the researcher of the future is going to need to have critical thinking at the center of their whole process of PhD or master's writing, right? We need to see, we're going to be seeing that the skills of conceptual integration, ethical judgment, and intellectual grounding and positioning, those are the skills that are going to be needed. Moving away from reference checking, grammar checking, paraphrasing, looking at all those minute things, right? So there will be an emergence of the AI augmented researcher. So we're going to be seeing the researcher where the future researcher is not replaced by AI, but the researcher is enhanced by AI, and they will require new competencies in AI collaboration, verification, and knowledge curation. So that's where we're going, right? And as I'm talking about this, you need to ask yourself, how much of AI do you know, right? And how much of AI tools have you tried out for yourself, right? Or are you still stuck in your traditional way of summarizing and writing work, right? So, but now the question is, we need to rethink originality in AI-assisted research, right? So the concept of originality itself has shifted, right? So we're moving from individual authorship to distributed knowledge production, right? So where you as a researcher, you're not the only one who is involved in the process of knowledge reproduction or production, but you are augmented by these agents that are assisting you to bring in knowledge from all aspects of the research spectrum, right? So research is no longer produced solely by the individual, but emerges through interaction between researcher AI systems and existing knowledge. So it will be a fallacy to think that you as a researcher, you're going to be the original and sole originator of the knowledge that you produced, right? It will be a fallacy for you, and it will be a mistake for you to think that in the age of agentic AI, you still remain, you say, for me, myself, you know, I don't really like these AI things. I feel like I should go and read and summarize and write in my notebook. And when I'm done writing in my notebook, and I must actually then type for myself, right? You are similar to a person who, when social media came, you said, I prefer using my telecom phone, right? I don't want to use, so I trust my telecom phone where I'm going to put 2 cents in it, then I still continue to call, right? And those, to date, there are people who never tried to use those platforms, and you'll be left behind because we are not going backwards. We are actually progressing. So I'm saying, as a researcher, as an emerging researcher, what you need to learn now is to move beyond generative AI to go to agentic AI, so that when that time came where we are finding ourselves in the agentic economy, you won't be found wanting. So we say AI-assisted idea generation does not eliminate originality, right? And this is one thing that always people grapple with, and people always question each other to say, no, when the work that is generated on ChatGPT, it removes originality, right? No, AI-assisted idea generation now, it does not eliminate originality, right? So we're saying originality lies not in who generate ideas first, right, but in how ideas are selected, interpreted, and developed into scholarly arguments, right? So we say that the agentic AI or the generative AI, it doesn't have the agency to run or to come up with goals of its own. It can only work on goals that are being given to it by the human agent, right, by the human researcher. So when we want to come with an argument to say, oh, the work was not generated by you, so it's not original, right? You lack originality. That's a misleading statement, right? That's a misleading way of thinking, because we're saying the aspect of originality does not lie in who generated the text, right? Originality lies on the interpretation of the text, right? The interpretation of the knowledge generated and the development of scholarly arguments to say, I'm taking ownership of these arguments because I want these arguments to go this direction, and bringing in context within it, and bringing in context, scholarly and intellectual grounding. That's what originality means in the age of agentic AI. So we're saying the concept of originality in research needs to be rethought. Right, it needs to be rethought, and need to be rethought with the understanding of what agents can do and what generative AI can do. If we remain stuck to the concept of originality in academia or in research, similar to what we've known over the past 20 years, we will see and continue to penalize each other and be hard on each other, and producing, not moving forward. Right. So we say human intellectual agency remains central. So guiding the problems, the human researcher should always guide the problem. They should make decision on what should be included in the final report, and they should frame the inquiry, and framing inquiry are still the research responsibility. So original contribution as intellectual position, we're saying what we should regard as original contribution is intellectual positioning of whatever text that agent is produced. So we need to say who has determined how this and what the engagement with the debates, right? The identifying of gaps and advancing of new interpretations. How then do you interpret what has been generated by the agent? That's what we regard to as your original contribution as intellectual positioning. And three things are they: engaging in debates, identifying gaps, and advancing new interpretations, right? So we say we're moving from content creation to knowledge curation and synthesis, right? We are moving to just create content, right? Now the researcher's role is now you're curating, you're validating, you are integrating knowledge into meaningful contributions. That's what we are going to see, and that's where we're going with agentic AI and AI. Right. So the other question is that what is novelty? What is creativity and knowledge production? Right. Who is responsible? And if we use agents, what will be left now of novelty to say, no, excuse me, I bring novelty in this work, and I bring creativity in this work, and knowledge production. So there are new foundations of scholarly contribution, right? So where novelty is insights and not just as output, right? So we're simply saying that originality is increasingly defined as by the new ways of thinking, right? And connecting and interpreting knowledge rather than producing entirely new text. So it goes beyond the issue of just producing text like what we're accustomed to. And creativity should be now understood as conceptual integration. When we say productivity, that's why I'm always emphasizing that in your theoretical chapter and your methodology, there should be conceptual integration, right? Creativity now lies in the ability of the researcher to combine theories, methods, and perspectives in innovative ways. Even when AI assists in generating these possibilities, your ability as a researcher to map around different concepts and theories in the agentic age, this is what now we conceptualize as creativity. Right. Also looking at blurring boundaries between human and AI collaboration contribution, where we're saying the distinction between human-generated and AI-assisted ideas become less important. We get to a point where we are not worried anymore as to how the work was generated, right? If whether the entire thesis was generated is 100% AI, right? We're getting to that age where even we don't care about your Turnitin report that you have 99% AI generated, right? So this distinction between human generated and AI assisted ideas, it's going to become less important, right, than the researcher's critical engagement ownership. And I always sit down with supervisors and academic leaders and deans. I remember one of them called me a few days ago and saying, no, the student has 80% AI on their report from Turnitin. And my first reaction was, are the arguments intellectually sound, right? This is answering the research goals, the research objectives and questions, right? Was the data collected ethically, right? And was the data analyzed in an ethical manner and rigorous manner? And are the findings sound? That's what I asked the dean to say. We need to move beyond being worried about whether ChatGPT wrote this paragraph, or whether there's a dash, or whether there's a comma in your work, or whether there's an American symbol that symbolizes AI, to be worried about the critical engagement and the soundness and rigor of the actual work that has been produced, right, in the agentic AI, because we're saying the researcher, we're moving away from them being the sole knowledge producer, right? So knowledge production is a collaborative process. So we're saying researchers becomes co-constructed, research becomes a co-constructed process where AI supports exploration, right? So AI does the sifting and finding of the knowledge and information, right? But the researcher's role on a final report is to ensure that there is rigor, coherence, and meaning, right? Those are the fundamentals that are going to be important in the agentic AI. We won't be worried about whether there's 100% AI in your work. No, we will be worried about the rigor, coherence, and meaning of your dissertation, of your thesis, right? That's where we're going, right? So accountability and ownership remains human responsibility. So what we are saying is that regardless of AI involvement, the researcher retains full responsibility for accuracy, right? So your role now as a researcher, moving away from generating text, or you are found in the process of co-production of knowledge, right? Your research as a researcher is to ensure there is accuracy, there is clear academic interpretation and intellectual interpretation, then there's ethical integrity and scholarly contribution in whatsoever that you have produced with your platform that you're working with, right? So the question that some still people, and I think if you're still asking this question, you are a bit behind, right? So the question is, so who is the author in AI-assisted research? Who is the author, right? Because previously I've said you are involved in the process of co-creation of knowledge, right? But I didn't say you are involved in the process of co-authorship, right? So, and we defined knowledge creation as being underpinned by three things, right? debates, intellectual debates, and other aspects that I have mentioned. So the question is, who is the author in AI assisted research? Now, the first question that researchers are constantly asking themselves is, can AI be considered a co-producer of knowledge, right? So we're saying AI aids the research process, but lacks creativity and critical judgment. Therefore, and that's the fundamental aspect of knowledge production, right? Knowledge production is hinged on creativity and critical judgment, right? Those are the two fundamental aspects that determines if somebody has produced knowledge. Is it creative, or is there critical judgment on what has been done? And AI does not possess these fundamental aspects that are unique to human beings. Therefore, the human researcher guides and interprets the findings, and therefore the human remains the sole responsible producer of knowledge, right? So who takes responsibility for AI generated insights or errors, right? Now we can't blame the tools. I've always said, if ChatGPT makes a mistake, you cannot blame the tool, because we say it lacks creativity and critical judgment and human judgment, and the researcher is fully responsible for verifying and validating all AI generated results. Now let's talk about authorship and credit definition, right? You cannot cite or credit, you cannot add AI or an agentic AI is a co-author, right? So human researcher is the primary author. AI is acknowledged as a tool or assistant, right? So we need to ensure ethical and accurate research. So researchers should ensure that there's validity, accuracy, and ethical standards. And these are fundamentals in ensuring academic rigor. And AI or agentic AI does not have the competencies to do these things. The validity, the accuracy, and ethical and critical judgment and creativity, these still remain the purview of a human being or of a human researcher. So we're saying there needs to be human oversight and human control in every work that AI has produced or the agentic AI has produced. Now, another question that we need to answer is, how must the role of the researcher change, right? So you're saying, oh, okay, I hear everything that you're saying, Doc, but now how should I move away from where I am? How should the role of the researcher change, right? We're saying, you're moving from the generator of information to critical thinker and curator of the work that has been generated, the information that has been gathered for you by the agent, right? So you are now waiting to say, all right, the same way you would have evaluated the abstracts of 100 articles. Now we're saying you're not going to evaluate 100 articles or the 100 abstracts or look whether they fit within the purview of your study or within your discipline or your research question. What you need to do now is to evaluate whether the finished product meets the expectation of your research, right? So critical thinking, then you bring in your intellectual debates and academic voice in there and become the curator of that work. So you become the custodian and safeguard of academic integrity through your critical judgment, right? So now this shift in roles within the agentic AI requires us as researchers to gain new skills. We need to hone on new skills. And I remember I did a presentation at the University of KwaZulu-Natal last year around February, where I argued the gist of the central argument of my presentation was that if you are a researcher and if you're not using AI, right, you will be replaced in the future by the researcher or by the academic who knows how to use AI. You'll be left wondering, even if when you're talking about publications, if you are stuck in not wanting to use agentic AI or AI, thinking that you have all these questions about originality and stuff like that, you will be found wanting, because the future of research lies in the affordances that are being brought to us by agentic AI. So that necessitates the researcher to learn new skills, right? The researcher needs to learn new skills. The first skill that you need to learn as an emerging researcher, PhD, master's, or an early career researcher is prompt design. Right, you need to learn how to craft effective queries that produce effective results, right? You need to learn aspects of verification. You need to learn the skills of accuracy, verifying work, verifying arguments. It's a skill. Don't take it for granted. Don't take it lightly. You need to learn how to verify text, right? You need to learn how to synthesize in terms of integrating ideas and insights. Those are the things that we need to know now. Back then, when we started, we would go to the library and they would teach us how to search literature on Google Scholar, right? They would teach us how to search literature on the university library, or in the library, the Dewey system in the library, right? I worked in the library some time back. I know the Dewey system, right? Where the books are arranged and stuff like that. You would spend ages and ages. We're saying you don't need to do that in the agentic AI, right? What you should learn in the future skills, you need to learn understanding what are AI ethics, so that you are not found wanting. Learn how and way and how to adhere to the AI ethics. You need to know all of them as you are developing your work, right? But there are also skills that are at risk of being lost, right? For example, we are going to the age where we're not going to need data collectors anymore, right? Your field works, your research assistant, we're going to the point where we're not going to need them anymore, because the agents, I'll give you an example, the one that we've developed that can do the interviews without the researcher, the interviews with the participant without any research. So you don't need to go to the field. Everything is done on the phone, right? So you need to know that if you are interested, if you want to call yourself, I love data collection so much, love data collection, but appropriate skills and technologies that enhance data collection. Manual analysis, the traditional coding system of color coding system, we're not going to need that in the near future, because we have your in vivo, we have Atlas, TIS, PSS, and other various tools that are there. Even ChatGPT itself analyzes data more than a professor that you might even know of, right? It does a great job in terms of analyzing data. There is a study that was conducted in one Western country, where the two professors were given two PhDs, right? One whose analysis was done using ChatGPT, right? The findings and the discussion of the findings was done using ChatGPT and other various AI tools. And the other one was done with the traditional way of doing things, right? And they were given to mark both, and they were, without knowing if these two pieces are whether which one is which that was developed with AI and stuff like that. All of them were in the favor of the one that was done using ChatGPT and AI, showing you that there are still gaps in human knowledge or human capacities that AI itself can do. So what you need to do as early researcher, as a PhD or master's, you need to learn new skills. You need to learn new technologies for analyzing data. You need to learn source evaluation, critical reading of skills, right? Those source evaluation, those things are not necessary anymore, right? To evaluate, for example, to what we used to do when we are doing a literature review, we gather the abstracts. After we gather the abstracts, then we read one by one, looking for the relevance. Those skills are not necessary anymore, right? You need to shade them off and replace them with new technological skills. The writing skills, academic composition, right? The writing skills, right? I've always told some guys, some friends of mine who are editors, I tell them that, gentlemen, if your work is at risk, right? If you're an editor, because ChatGPT can do a better job than you, right? And Grammarly can do a better job than you, and there are more other technologies, right? So in terms of academic writing skills, right, we might not need to stress more teaching about how to write as an academic anymore, because you can press a button or a prompt that say write as an academic, and the work takes an academic approach. So those skills, those skills, if they are the skills that you take pride in, you need to update yourself and upgrade yourself, right? Yourself. So the question is, how is supervision being redefined now? We briefly touched on this last time in our presentation on supervisor and supervisory role. So the role of the supervisor now has changed, right? It's they should, if you are a supervisor or you're working with a supervisor, what your supervisor should do for you in the agentic age, right, is to ensure quality and ethics, right, and to teach you and foster critical thinking and promote independent learning, right? Not to work as a hub for knowledge, right? Because the knowledge is everywhere, and we have knowledge banks that are more rich than what my supervisor knows, right? I'll tell you confidently that if I'm to do my PhD now, right, there's no supervisor who would be able to supervise, to guide me in terms of how I can bring in knowledge to the table, right? Because I know all the knowledge banks, right? I know where knowledge is, right? And there's many more students who also know where knowledge is. So we can't depend on the supervisor for knowledge now. I know how to do conceptual making using AI, right? I know how to bring in new knowledge, right? Because I have vast amounts and resources of banks of reserves of knowledge, right? But the supervisor now should come in there in terms of managing trust and transparency, right? Teach you as a student to disclose AI use and build trust in AI tools, giving you suggestions on which AI tools you use, and ensure that there's always disclosure. And they should also come in assessing the student's understanding. They need to evaluate if the student engaged with work. They need to test critical thinking and critical analysis and review the research process to see how did you come up to this final project. I, as a supervisor, I'm not worried if my student register today, right, and bring me the thesis tomorrow. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about the key things that make academic integrity. I've come to the point of realization that it's not about the time, right? It's about the integrity, the originality, and the authenticity of the work that has been put in there. So if you think that doing a PhD in 5 years or a master's in 10 years, if that's what makes it rigorous or sound or everything, I think in the agentic AI, you might be found wanting, and people who come from the agentic AI from the future like us might not want to spend an hour with you because we see you as retrogressive, because workflows have been, the time aspect in terms of doing research has been blurred, if not destroyed, right? So the supervisor should do mentorship and ethics, transparency and trust, and verifying the understanding. Those are the key roles of the supervisor now within the age of AI. Now the question is, what happens to research methodology in the agentic AI era, right? So we're saying that AI and research design, it can, the question will be, can AI suggest to optimize research design? But it does, because it assists us with pattern identification. It optimizes samples, suggesting hypotheses, right? Now, another question will be, will methodologies become hybrid or adaptive, right? So I'm from the school of thought that in the age of AI, especially agentic AI, with the way information and knowledge is so much available now, there is increasing need for blending methodologies, right? You cannot have a linear methodology or research design now in this age, right? Because knowledge is vast and there's a lot of things that you can do with knowledge, right? And you need to be flexible and evolving methodology. Your methodology should evolve as the process of the project itself unfolds, right? You might start your study as a focusing specifically on collecting data using face-to-face interviews on Teams, right? But as the time you get to the completion or to the doing of the data collection, your methodology or your data collection process should evolve to increase emerging technologies along the way of you collecting data. And we should have that flexibility. I mean, we need to talk about the ethics of that, with universities, whether you can change or not. But that's what we're saying. In the age of AI, we should have that flexibility, right? So we need to see more integration of mixed method studies, mixed method research, not only focusing on surveys, on interviews. You should bring in content analysis, you should bring in mapping, bibliometric analysis in your study so that it becomes rigorous and rich, right? But also we need to ensure methodological rigor. And how do we ensure rigor when AI is involved? Number one is human oversight, validation and verification, transparency in AI use, and ethical consideration. Very important, right? What are the risks of agentic AI in postgraduate research? Most people will have to talk about risk and forget about the affordances, the benefits, right? So the first risk is over-reliance and intellectual dependence, right? You need to guard against excessive dependence on AI tools that weakens independent thinking. And we also need to guard against fabricated or inaccurate knowledge, right? Where we know that they create, in some instances, biased information. And we need to guard against erosion of critical thinking, right? And also we need to look at the issues of inequality in terms of digital divide, where unequal access to advanced AI resources allow other students like me, if I'm a student, I would do better than even my professor, because I've come to the point where I can use one of the best AI tools that are available. Now, the other question that we need to answer is, how do we rethink integrity, academic integrity beyond plagiarism? This one is going to be a bombshell in our, we'll focus more on it in our presentation next week, where we argue that we need to separate AI policy from plagiarism policy, right? Because we need to redefine plagiarism in the age of AI, because plagiarism was mostly regarded as copying and pasting, right? But still, now we have a different type of copying and pasting, right? Remember, back then you would copy and paste from someone's article, but now we don't copy from somebody else's article. You get it? So now, is that still plagiarism? I'm still copying and pasting, but I'm not copying and pasting from someone's work, right? So why traditional plagiarism frameworks are no longer sufficient, right? So AI generated content is blurring the lines of authorship, right? Data fabrication also makes us identify plagiarism very difficult, and the shifting responsibility of who is the original author and not who's not the original author does not allow us to pinpoint plagiarism in itself. So what replaces copying is the central concern, right? So we not, instead of us being worried about copying and pasting to say you copied and pasted this, in the agentic AI, we need to talk about intellectual ownership, right? Emphasizes on original thought. We need to talk about clear AI disclosure and responsible AI use, right? How do we govern AI-assisted knowledge production, right? So we're saying that universities increasingly need to put on those AI guidelines, AI awareness training, like these trainings that we're doing. We need to constantly train people, and we need to learn how to detect to come up with AI detection tools that are accurate, not the fake ones that we have. I confidently say that 99% of the AI detection tools that are on the market, all of them have errors, right? None of them is working perfectly and effectively. And it's not something that we should rely on. We should rather rely on human judgment instead, right? Continuation adoption, right? We need to encourage our students, our colleagues, to continue to use AI, because the more we use AI, the more it becomes better, right? The feedback we give to the platforms, the more those platforms are enhanced and the more they become better. So we need to encourage the use of AI to everybody, right? Everybody must use AI. Everybody must use. I'm advocating PhD and master students to use agentic AI. Go and make agents, go and create agents. You would thank me later. Go and create agents that will automate your task and make your task easier, right? What should universities do now, right? What should universities do now, right? We need AI policies that are not rigid, right? We need AI policies that are living documents that can be updated tomorrow or tonight when there is a new technology that has come. And we also need those ethical guidelines. Transparency, and University in South Africa are doing a very good job. Even still, I have some reservations with a couple of universities, right? We'll talk about them next week, right? We need academic models that are collaborative learning, interdisciplinary approaches. This is the time for interdisciplinary research. I love that I attended one writing retreat, an engineering writing retreat, and what I learned there, I asked myself, what was I doing in the humanities all this time, right? And they use some technologies there to analyze data and to present findings that we didn't use in our humanities. And I actually realized that, you know what, I can actually use this better or integrate these technologies and theories into my work, right? So we're saying evolving education practices, right? So we need to change the way we assess our students, we need to change the way we do our supervision, and we need to train research AI tools and ethics on a daily, right? Because AI is not going anywhere, right? We need to prepare our students for the future, and preparing the students for the future is to now look at what is the next AI thing that is going to come. And we said it's agentic AI, and we need to get ourselves ready for agentic AI to use those agents, and you need to start using those agents. So what does the future researcher look like in the agentic AI era? Right. So the key competencies of a researcher in the agentic AI era, if you are to survive, you need to have AI literacy. You need to have critical thinking. You need to have ethical awareness, right? You need to train to collaborate with AI, right? You need to have critical and independent thinking and adaptability, right? You need to have uniquely human qualities, for example, creativity and innovation, ethical judgment, and contextual understanding, right? So human and AI partnership is researching with integrity and imagination. That's what the future is, agentic AI. If you don't have an agent, you need to book a consultation with us. We'll show you how an agent does and what an agent is, right? I'm gonna quickly show you how we've come to the end of the presentation, right? I'm going to quickly show you one agent that I've used before, right? While I'm switching screens, let's hear some comments, questions. I know what I presented today, some people might not be in favor of it, right? People might be having questions, but this is the platform. Let's have the conversation. Any thoughts? Yes, Simi, as usual.
It has become a tradition, Dr. Moringa, indeed. And thank you very much for a great presentation. And you are correct, Dr. Moringa. This calls for a paradigm shift. This calls for rewiring of our thoughts, rewiring of our world views. If we're going to survive, really, we need to rethink about everything that we have been doing. Dr. Moringa, I just want to touch on three things which I think they are not going to be affected by agentic AI, and that is proposal, research proposal defense. The other one is ethical clearance, the process of getting ethical clearance. The other one, the third one, is the gatekeeper permission or gatekeeper ledger. Those three items moving forward are the things that are going to consume more of the time students are doing their PhD, master's studies, because most traditional universities are still going to do those three items in a traditional way. Thank you very much, Doc.
Yes, well said. Well said, Simi. I think this is very interesting. So this ties to the question of time, right? So you see, these three things, they are the greatest delay in completing studies. I mean, according to research. Proposal, defense, and proposal. Well, we can write a proposal in a day or 30 minutes, right? But the university bureaucracy, right? Then the ethical clearance and the gatekeepers later. These won't be unless the university itself agentize the process of ethical clearance application. All right, but proposal, defense, and gatekeepers later, I think they'll remain. But I'm confident that if we can come up with systems to say ethical clearance is not done, is not dependent on the guys in ethics office only, right? But we can use AI tools, just like what journals are doing now. You know, if you submit your paper to a journal, the journals are receiving more than 1,000 papers in a day, right? But the systems can run through those papers and tell you that there's an issue of ethics because you mentioned that you did participants, but you didn't attach a ethical clearance form, right? So if universities can move fast to get to that point where we don't need a lot of guys sitting there, in 2 or 3 guys sitting for the whole university, but submit your ethical clearance or your proposal on this platform in 10 minutes, right? That system can run through your proposal, entire proposal, and tells you if you meet the ethicals or not, and if you don't, you do the corrections, you update, and it gives you that this can happen in a day. And ethical clearance can happen in a day. But I mean, we are in Africa where we get to catch up with these things. We still catch up with these things after a long period of time. But you're right, proposal, defense, ethical clearance, and gatekeepers later, those are the key derailers of what that'll keep our students not completing in record time, right? There is got, let's see, you got Lillian. You can go ahead, Lillian.
Oh, thank you, Doc. When you pronounced my surname earlier on, I got a little bit lost. So
Okay,
thank you. Really appreciate this session. I'm actually sitting here feeling sorry for myself that I missed the first 2 sessions. Really informative. I just wanted to maybe just get a bit of guidance from your side. I've collected data and I've analyzed my data using two methods. One was the traditional, of course, the Atlas AI, but I tried to use AI as well, and you'll be shocked of how much I got from AI. I mean, the themes, the codes, it really put everything. So I'm attempted right now to adopt what I got from AI as opposed to Atlas, and I think I'm just conflicted to say, will it be allowed? How would I justify analyzing data using AI? But it really puts everything so perfectly. And I'm using grounded theory, by the way, just so you know. So very, very good. I mean, the data that I got from there, it's so rich that I want to try and use AI generated analysis as opposed to Atlas.
All right. So yeah, that's a nice one. Oh, that brings speaks to the example I gave earlier, one of the 2 PhD theses that were examined, and professors were in favor of the one that had that was ChatGPT analyzed, right, without them knowing, right? So what happens here is that, you know, this is going to speak back to the issue of ethics. In your ethical clearance, you mentioned something that were you going to collect data and analyze the data? You said you're going to use Atlas TI and stuff like that, right? So one thing, number one, you can still use your Atlas TA to generate the themes, right? Then you go and develop the themes on ChatGPT. So that now speaks to an augmented research tool or instrument for analyzing data. When you are reporting your methodology, right, you said this is the role that Atlas has done, but we augmented the capabilities of Atlas by enhancing those themes on ChatGPT or whatever platform that you've used, which is still allowed, right? Because you are augmenting the shortfalls of one platform with the other, right? So which is still fine, but don't move away completely from Atlas, right? Take what Atlas has done that is not so much impressive and enhance it with the AI platform that you have, so that you can have an acknowledgement of both platforms, right? But you still have that good work that you've done. But beyond that, do not forget to critically evaluate that work that is looking so good, because what AI does sometimes, it can lie so beautifully and confidently to you, right? Because of the sentence patterns, it will be telling you something that is offside, right? But because it reads so well, you will not be able to pick it up, right? So that's very important. That's what we call critical evaluation and human judgment of the work. But you are on the right track. I want to believe so. So bring platforms together, Atlas AI generating themes or codes and stuff like that. Then I took those codes to ChatGPT and whatever you've done so that you can have the final output, right? So you enhanced the output from Atlas AI using ChatGPT. That's what you've done. And that shouldn't be a problem with anybody. I'm sure that that addresses your concern.
It does. Thank you so much.
Right. Any other right. So I'm gonna just do a quick one.
Good morning.
Yes, morning. How are you?
My hand is up. Maybe it was late. My doctor.
Yes.
Thank you very much for these workshops. But I remain like, you know, questioning myself whether the systems we have, like you were saying, that we are in these platforms, nobody is here as our most senior people who have to make decisions at other places like ethical clearance, ethics committee members. And I'm checking whether yes, we are moving forward, and even with our students, we are moving forward. And how can this everybody be made to be aware of this agency as we are moving towards agent AI within agent economy? Because really we are no longer going to move backward. But if the systems are not, you know, refreshing itself along the new ways of doing things, then those with powers will make us stuck. I'm just afraid that we are moving far and people are not moving. How do we make them move with us?
You're moving faster than your supervisor and your dean and head of school.
Everybody,
right?
Yes.
Yes. So this is actually a challenge that I've also had. When I'll give you an example of what happened when in 2022, when ChatGPT was announced, OpenAI was announced. I was at DUT. I was a lecturer there at DUT, and I was the only one who was using ChatGPT, and I was open about it, that I'm using ChatGPT, and people would look at me with their eyes like, why are you using ChatGPT, right? Those things are unethical and stuff like that. And I really fought until people begin to now think to say, you know, let's look at what you're saying works and what you're doing with these things. Let's try and look at them, right? So you are right by saying that you see, these platforms is the platforms that we are having these discussions, but the change can only come if we're having discussions by the powerful, right? Those who are powerful, right? And the only way we can do those things is to arrange to have these conversations with those people who are in power, right? For example, your deans, your academic leaders, those are the guys that we're having conversations with, right? To say this is where we're going. This is what is happening now, right? But of course, you have problems because the university bureaucracies are slow in terms of adapting to change, right? I mean, I will tell you that to date, some universities don't have an AI policy, right? They do not have. And some universities have made use of AI as plagiarism. You get it, and all those things. So, but that's why I'm saying in my presentation that the future is to continue encourage adoption, right? The more people adopt, the more we will get to a point where everybody will be interested in what we are talking about. So, but it's a pity that people who are powerful are not in these platforms, right? But in one way or the other, the message will reach to them. And when we do our retreats, we sit down with those deans and academic leaders when we are doing a retreats in the universities to tell them that this is where you need to go. So yeah, but we'll get there. We'll get there. I'm confident.
Hi, Dr. Moringa.
I wonder if you can explain this masterclass for the last time. Maybe I did not hear you. Masterclass in Durban. I've got some of my students around Durban. Can you tell when is it happening? How do they? Can I tell them to go there? Whoever will be coming, and issues around the masterclass on the 3rd. All right. I cannot hear, but I can see that you are speaking.
Oh, okay.
I
Sorry.
think he's muted.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm muted. Sorry about that. Right. So I'm saying that concerning the masterclass, our colleagues tomorrow will circulate the information or the pamphlet and the invitation for the masterclass with all information that you require to know. So, but basically, it's a 3-day workshop where it's a hands-on experience where we will be focusing on clear objectives to be met. So we would ask you, what do you want to work on before we accept you to come to the masterclass so that it won't be a waste? I want to work on chapter 3, 4, and 5. I want to work on my last three chapters, right? So we do that with you and assist you in those 3 intensive days so that by the time you leave with a 3 complete chapters ready for submission. Or if it is a manuscript that you want to work on, we make sure that you have those 3 manuscripts that you're submitting right away. So we'll be teaching you from zero to hero, from scratch, from nothing to submission. And for those who want to be working on manuscripts, you don't leave until we have seen that you have the confirmation of submission. Even if you come with the concept only, but we'll take you through the process until that manuscript is complete. 3 days is a lot of time in the age that we have to produce the manuscript. It's a lot of time. 3 days is a lot of time in the age of agentic AI to produce 3 chapters, right? It's a lot of time. That's 24 hours times 3, right? 24 hours times 3. That's a lot of time for you. You can actually, if you are a very intensive person, you can have all your chapters in the raw, and we're going to be working with you on those ones, hands-on experience with colleagues from MNG. So that's where we are, and that's what we're going to be doing. But more information will follow. Right, so I have an agentic AI that's open here that I'm sharing. Please confirm with me if it is showing.
Yes, it's showing.
Right, so this is Sciencebase. Some of us might have used it before, right? And what Sciencebase does is that just like your ChatGPT, it has a way to talk about, what do you want to talk about? How can I help you with your research, right? And here, I want to do a literature review. I want to write a draft. I want to generate a diagram. I want to search for papers. I want to extract data. I want to review my writing, write a report, data analysis, deep review, library, Medley, PubMed, Google Scholar, Python, grants.government if you want to look for grants, Word document, PowerPoint presentation. So this platform, what it does, it, like what I was explaining, what you simply need to do is to give it a goal, what to do here. Then it will do everything for you. Right. I see Dr. Esther is still trying to talk. Right. So I'm gonna do something quick for you so that you can see where the future of research, where the future of research is. Right. So it's here. This is a literature review. Right. I'm going to say, how does the South African media represent women politicians? Right. So what it does is that if I click here, it normally asks me for clarity. Right now it's thinking. Right. In the only thing that I've asked is to give me the question. Right. So now what's interesting is that it's having a conversation with me. It says, could you please clarify or narrow down your research query or how the South African media represents politicians? Specific focus. It says, are you interested in how women politicians are portrayed in specific media types, television, what? Then I say yes. So I'm going to say number one is yes. Or I can copy and paste. I can say all media. Right, then I go to number two, I answer number two and say, purpose of the research, are you aiming to understand the impact of media representation on public perception or policy influence? I'm gonna say impact on the electability of women politicians. Right, then I'm going to say, then number three is contextual relevance. How would you like to focus on a specific period or event in South African political history? Then I say, number three, let's focus between 2016, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, right? Between 2016 and 2024, well, what the elections and stuff. Then scope of inquiry, are you looking for a comparative analysis between different media outlets in South Africa? And I say no comparative analysis. All right. Then I click here. Let's see then what happens. Now, remember I said in agentic AI, it performs tasks in different stages. So what it's doing, it says the first thing that it's doing is executing.
Sorry, Doc.
Yes.
Sorry, Doc, can you please put this on presentation mode because I can barely see what you are showing us, if possible.
All right, so I'm showing my screen. Is it better now? I increased it.
Yes, much better now. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you so much for that. So what agentic AI does is that unlike your generative AI, this one here, it performs tasks, different tasks at different stages. So it begins by saying, we are searching for literature, right? Then it says South African media, South Africa, then it identifies filters in specific. Remember that I said that what it does is that it is goal-orientated, right? But for it to perform that goal, it takes different stages and break down the task into different aspects of it. So the same way you would have done manually, you are doing it here using the technology. So the first step is executing multiple relevant queries to broaden the research. Then this is what is done, the outcome. Then it identifying filters and specified in your query. Then we say papers from 2016 to 2024. Then it's looking at that, then finding relevant papers for query. Then it's saying that here, 21 of 1,050 papers were found to be relevant, right? And these are the papers. We can click here and show more and what and see what those papers are, but not for now, right? So it's conducting the whole search for us, right? We can choose to say load all. So these are your citations, very accurate, right? This is my paper here. We are not ready for a female president in South Africa, right? It's also featured there. Meta voicing. So you can verify all these papers, right? How does online women affect backlashes, media mechanisms, what's steering. So it gives you that literature already. You can get the PDF, you can listen to it, you can listen to the paper if you want to listen to it. Media representation of women politicians, Southern Africa, media representation, etc., etc. Right. So all these are sources that are accurate. But what is interesting, what makes agentic AI different? Sorry, Nakana, can you please mute? Right. So the difference between generative AI and agentic AI is that agentic AI does the task to completion, whereas generative AI gives you a feedback from what you've looked for. So what this agentic AI has done is to write a whole systematic paper for me, right? So it says reports, it's used 50 highly relevant papers. So this is a systematic review paper that it has done. It says South African media representation and women politicians. We have the abstract, right? It has done the abstract. It has done the introduction, right? It has done the introduction, then the purpose of the study. These are the specific objectives. Then the methodology, right? Then the results in table formula, right? It says this section maps the research landscape in South Africa, right? And right, all this is interesting information. Then it gives framing patterns. These are the those of us who are familiar with systematic reviews. This is a systematic review paper that it was done. What I simply did was to give it directions and the arguments that I wanted to come out. Critical analysis and synthesis. Now it's synthesizing the findings here in terms of tables. Then thematic review of literature. It's reviewing literature according to how many papers they focused on a specific paper and stuff like that. Then chronological review of literature, right? Then agreement and divergences across. If you're familiar with this, writing a systematic review, you know what this means. Theoretical and practical implications. We are closing now. Practical implications, limitations of literature review, right? Then gaps and future research direction. Right, then overall synthesis and conclusion. So what this platform has done, it has done the whole systematic review of me using 50 papers without me not saying a lot of things or doing back and forth of what ask me, answer this. So I can actually get, when I'm done, when I'm happy with this, I can download this thing. Right, there it is. That's my complete paper. How many pages is it? 34 pages. Right, that's my complete paper. What I'm going to need to do is to sit down and make sure that all these references are correct and reconstruct these bullet points into sentences, right? But I have the answers already, right? And all the tables are fine. I can import them like that, right? Or I can convert all this into paragraphs, right? This is fine. Excuse me, this is fine. I can convert this into paragraphs, but the information is already there. I'm given all these bullet points. I just need to write them in paragraph format, right? Then this conclusion and all the citations are here, very accurate, right? So that's agentic AI for you. That's where we're going, right? That's where we're going. Whether you as an individual, you like it or not, but that's what the future of the research is like in the near future. So this is science space, but there's a lot of agentic AI. You can do anything on science space for yourself, right? So ladies and gentlemen, there's a hand from Tamay. Is it Mamotibe? Right.
Yes,
So this
Prof,
is
I was just tempted, but I think I'll let you go. I was going to say now, for interest's sake, if we were to put it in those primary or those university systems where they want to check your document for plagiarism, how will it then come out? Do you want to try us or not for today?
Right. So let's try it. Let's find it out. Right. I will use Qbot to see if this document here. How does it score? Right. How does it score? Where is it? I can't find it anymore. I downloaded it, but where is it? Let me look for it quickly. Downloads.
But don't worry, Prof, if you can't find it, you'll always show us when we meet next time.
Right. So we can what we can do, we can so you see the same platform, the same science space, it is an AI detector. Right. So you can detect where the AI is, and when you are not happy, the same platform again, it is a paraphraser. Right. So whatever work is picked, AI detected there, you can clean it you can do everything on the same platform and command it to do everything. That's how beautiful this agentic approach is, right? So that's where we are going as researchers, and I think it's time that as emerging researchers or early career researchers, we need to familiarize ourselves with these tools and platforms, right? Because what you would simply do is you be working on a draft, right? Instead of you sitting down to read 50 articles, you read what are the key issues in the articles that are responding to what you want to do, right? So for our workshop next week, we'll be focusing on AI and plagiarism, right? I think that's where we'll demonstrate those. We have a workshop on the difference between AI and plagiarism, right? The difference between why we shouldn't call AI generated work plagiarized. That's what we'll be arguing for. All right, so I think we've reached the end of our workshop for today. We'll hear comments and questions. If there are none, then we'll call it a day and reconvene again next week. Please populate our flyers and share them around so that people who are in power can get to attend this and also hear where we are going as researchers, so that we don't get penalized in our exams. Right. Thank you so much, colleagues, for your time. Just going to take one or two questions. I'm not sure, Dr. Esther, if you managed to sort out your mic so that we can hear your thoughts.
Yeah, good morning, Dr. Fifi Moringa. Good morning,
yes.
everyone. Actually, I didn't raise my hand, but let me seize this opportunity to appreciate what you're doing. This is very, very good, and I've learned a lot, and I'm still learning. And I'm one of the AI advocates we are currently based. AI has come to stay, and I keep telling people, the earlier you align and follow the moving bus, the better for you. Just like in the days of Scopus, when people were saying Scopus is neo-colonialism, the whites have come to, subjugate us again. We shall not publish in Scopus, this, that. Those people that were fighting Scopus then, they've been left behind. The same thing is going to happen in this era of AI, especially this new evolution. We are still struggling to, accept, not me anyway, some people are still struggling to accept the generative AI and the traditional AI. And agentic has come. More are still going to come. So I want us to lend individual voice to this evolution that is on ground, so that we won't be left behind. AI has come to stay. The earlier we accept it, the better, because it is evolving every day. New features, new paradigms. We have to move forward. Thank you very much, Dr. Tipi, for what you and your team are doing. I am really grateful, and I pledge to lend my own voice in this advocacy for years. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. Thank you for so wonderful comments. There's a hand from Gresham.
Hi,
Go
Dr.
ahead.
Moringa. Hi, Dr. Moringa. Can you hear me clearly?
Loud and clear.
Awesome. So thank you so much for your series of AI sessions. I've joined since day one. I haven't missed them, and it's extremely valuable. And thank you for sharing this knowledge. Even though you're a consultancy, you still take it upon yourself to share this type of intellectual property and information with us. We really appreciate it. I also would like somebody, I don't know if I should contact you or somebody could contact me. I'd like to set up a consultation. And then my question is, look, I'm very, from my side, I work in the tech industry, and we have a lot of people using AI agents. We've gone past the stage of generated AI now. So AI agents is quite mainstream for us. The problem I'm having with my PhD, I'm from UKZ, is that I feel that, I'll go through the stages, gather my documents and information, do my chapter summary, map out where the sources lie, do the synthesis, do the theoretical framework, conceptual framework, draw my conclusions, analysis, data gathering, everything, and then draft it cleanly. The work is done, punctuation, grammar, everything is perfect. But then some of the students, which I'm also speaking on behalf in my area, are having the problem is we're going through all this information, we're synthesizing everything, we're reading our data, we're using these different AI tools, and then we get to the end, and then we're stuck at this door where you have to, submit your thesis, and now it tells you whether it's generated by AI on Turnitin. That's the biggest gate block that we all are having, because now the supervisor tells us to go back, and then we have to paraphrase and rewrite and now whitewash everything that the AI has helped us do. And then sometimes we find ourselves trying to make it more human-like, put a comma in the wrong place, some spelling errors, whatever. We even tried submitting our own work and adjusting the tone so the AI writes it in our tone. So I feel that's something that we need to speak about more. I hope you can just shed some more light on how we can get past that Turnitin point. Because as you said in your presentation, the supervisor needs to change a bit the approach to how they look at the data, and your work needs to change, not just whether AI generated or not, but look at how we thought, how we approached it, our methodology, and that sort of thing. More of like an orchestrator than a writer. Yeah. So any thoughts on that and tips? Thanks, Doc.
Yes, thank you so much, Gretchen. Very insightful and I think great, interesting stuff coming from UKZN. So this is a huge one, right? This is a big problem because number one, the tension between the student and the supervisor is emanating from the idea that the supervisor themselves, they were hit by surprise by AI, right? They were found unprepared, right? The university was found unprepared, right? Even though the university has come up with a policy, I'm familiar with the UKZN policy because I was involved there. It doesn't say anything about detecting AI, right? There's no provision for that policy that allows a supervisor to detect AI, let alone to upload your work on any platform, right? So unless there's agreement between the supervisor and the student. So the challenge is the supervisor themselves, they are still stuck in the traditional way of supervision, where they think that they are the fountain of knowledge, right? And they are the gatekeeper of what should be regarded as disciplinary acceptable within this particular discipline, right? And until and unless they have moved away from that traditional approach to appreciate the agentic role, the AI role, and how it has shifted, transfused, transformed the space of supervision. Right? This conversation has never been had somewhere else, right? I mean, senior professors, senior academics are not willing to have these conversations, right? Let alone people in power, to say, let's recalibrate the whole supervision model. Let's recalibrate it and say, what is the role of the supervisor in the age of AI? Right? Because the supervisor, they don't know how to use AI. They've not used it. And the student knows, right? And in this particular case, the student knows more than the supervisor themselves, because the student has this vast bank of knowledge where that they're coming from, right? Especially for you already in that space of agentic AI. So for us to navigate the supervisor when they are ready to, when you are ready to submit your work, then they feel that you've written it so well that it's AI and you need to cut it down. I'm saying the fact that the work is so perfect, you are afraid to submit my work because it's so perfect. So let's downgrade it a little bit so that it fits within the human way of doing things. Right? But are we not striving for perfection? That's the question. Are we not striving for perfection? We need perfect developed work. And we're saying AI can perfect that work in collaboration with the human. So when I give you something perfect, you should be happy because we are producing something that is perfect. But alas, that's not what we are seeing within the academic space. And those conversations need to happen with people who are in position of power, with our senior academics, right? So that they can appreciate. I know of a supervisor at UKZN when a student has completed the whole literature review, right? So the student did the literature review traditionally without knowing the agentic and stuff like that, the AI tools and stuff like that. Then we expose them to all these tools that are there to say, no, look, this is how you can do it and stuff like that. Then within a short period of time, the student came up with a good work, right? That is, and it was a shocker to the supervisor. The supervisor dismissed the work not because the work was bad, but because the student has outdone themselves in the past. So the reasons that we are getting from our seniors and from the people in the position of power do not hold water, and they are disconnected from what are the realities and nuances of AI. Right. If we're saying we're struggling to edit because we are not English language speakers, now we can edit and the work doesn't have errors. And you problematize that again. And I think that's unfair, and I think those conversations need to continue happening. And that's why we're having these conversations. That's why we're having these workshops, to equip and to give the masters and PhD students that ability to know what you should be doing. And when you engage with the supervisor, this is what you need to bring to them, because the university is not training them on this one. And already they're established in their disciplines and fields. So there's no time for them to adjust. But we are saying, we as emerging, we need to adjust. And the process of change is, of course, painful and it will take time, but we'll get there.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you. I appreciate it. But next week, we're going to be speaking much in depth about plagiarism and AI, and how the university should transform, and what are the key strategies that we can engage with our supervisors. All right. Checking there if we still have any thoughts. If there aren't, I think we might as well call it. Oh, there's a hand from Osulale John. John, you can go ahead, John. John, you can go ahead. Makanjwala, are you still there?
Can you hear me?
You are breaking a bit.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, sure, we can. You can go ahead.
You can hear me? Okay, okay.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yeah. Sir, I have two things to clarify. The EU grant writing an award. What is your take in this? If we say we are migrating to AI, and as scholars, we want to write to secure grants, what can we do in this regard? Then the second one is this thing you are organizing for physical people in Durban. What happened to those of us that are online? Thank you.
Right, great, thank you. I didn't quite get the first question, but I picked the second one. So the second one is that we out of demand, the people who are in Durban have requested that we do something for them, right? And with the first of its kind in Durban, right? Through this series of workshops. We'll see how it goes, but we are going to the provinces, right? But we also do some online. But online, we normally do our stuff online. We find it very difficult to do a group online, but we'll do one-on-one, right? The one-on-one training online when you're doing online, because the group online, we might struggle to track and do follow up what you are doing, and if you are on the same page as us. That's why our physical workshops are very impactful and they produce a tremendous result. But we will do the one-on-one online, right? I suggest that we have free 20 minutes consultation every day, that you can drop us an email, then we can arrange and see what we can do for you online. But we,
Okay.
yes. The first question was what? You mentioned something about grants.
The first question was on grant writing and the acceptance of AI outputs, the grant awards. Say, what is your view? That
Yes, I've come across some grants that say they don't want stuff that is AI written. I do not know what was their reasoning for that reason, you know. But they said if you have done so, you need to declare. I might need to go and find out what is the reason why the grants, the funders do not want AI to be used to write. I'm really not sure. I will need to go and find out. Then I might get back to you with this answer next week.
all right. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, sure. All right. I think we've exhausted of all the questions. If there is anyone who has not received any attention, right, you can always drop us an email. Or okay, there is one Shadrach.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Muringa, for the opportunity. Thank you very much for your good programs. I do really appreciate your good and hard work. Unfortunately, today my network was very poor. I was booted in, booted out. So my first question is, I'm very happy and excited with the agentic AI. So where exactly to start to get into the system of agentic AI? I know the DeepSeek, we log in through our Gmail. Then I just want to hear the starting point. I had a lot of information you have delivered to us, but I missed on the starting, where to get started.
Right. So the first things first, like any, so we said regard AI as tools, right? As your toolbox with tools. So understand the goals, the objectives. What do you want to do? Right. That's the first question. I want to write a literature review. Then you need to search for agents that assist with literature review. You get it?
Yes.
So right. So the tools that you would gather in your tools box are informed by the kind of work that you want to produce, the trade, the objectives and goals. So begin with the question, with the goals in mind, right? Because we're saying agents are goal orientated, they are goal executing, they execute goals. So you say my goal is to produce a literature review, my goal is to produce a systematic review, my goal is to write a thematic analysis, to do ABC. Then you begin from there to look around for those tools that do that specific task for you. Right. But if you look at Sciencebase, it has a lot of options that, I mean, I think you can do the whole research process for you. So that's where you begin. That's your entry point. Then when you find Sciencebase or whatever tool, you can use Gmail for free. If you want to add some few runs there, you can always do. But begin from understanding what do you want to find. Right. Do we find those agents on Sciencebase? Yes. There's on Sciencebase, those are agents, right? The screen that I showed there, the list that I was going through, those are agents.
Okay. Noted. Thank you so much.
All right. Appreciate it, sir. I think we're done. All the best with your studies, guys. with your work, with your supervision and everything that you're doing. You can drop us an email at any time. We can arrange a 20 minutes free consultation with you just to hear what you're going through and what we can do for you. We can do that for you free of charge. If you want more hours, then it will be billed per hour, right? But otherwise, thank you so much. Next week, same time, same place, we're going to be talking about AI policy and plagiarism and how those two should be separated and how we should redefine plagiarism in the agentic age. Thank you so much. Spread the word.
Hello,
Share the
Doctor.
flyer.
Before we go,
yes,
you
yes,
talked
yes.
of 1 hour billing. You talk of 1 hour billing. Can you share that information so that when colleagues are in need of that space can access it?
All right. Okay. Colleagues from MNG, can you please share that the link there? If you go on our website, I think all the information is there. But we'll definitely, we'll definitely send that information around. We'll populate it with you. Since we have your email address, we'll do share it with you. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for taking time. Once again, see you next week. Happy. It's what day is it? It's Heritage. It's not Heritage Day. It's
today is a Heritage Day.
Human rights.
It's Human Rights Day, Doctor.
Yeah,
it's Human
Thank
Rights
you,
Day.
sir. Thank you so
In
much.
Namibia, it's Independence Day.
Bye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you, Doc. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye bye.